What?
Did you get into body work because of anxiety, or was it more like just kind of a happenstance? You didn't really think about it that way, but it ended up working out for you, though.
You know what's interesting is I don't think when I got into body work, I even was aware that I was anxious. But now looking backwards, it definitely was anxiety that I was feeling that made me feel really uncomfortable inside my body.
I don't even think our generation really ever heard of that word, anxiety. Like, we used to use the word anxious as like we were excited about something. Like, I remember having to redefine that word for me. Like, I'm anxious for Christmas to come.
Yes.
Like, that was a good thing, but you ask, like my kids' generation, I have teenagers, you have teenagers as well, anxiety is the dominating internal feeling for a lot of these kids, and that's kind of a weird thing.
And it's very interesting. I think that anxiety and excitement feel very similar inside of the body.
Yep. It's just, you and I were talking about how people need anxiety to be normalized a little bit. I thought that was a really, really good point. I think even more important than knowing that everybody has anxiety is knowing that what it really is. It's basically your nervous system perceiving a threat. And people have all different levels of anxiety. Some of it's crippling, but it originates as a perception of a threat, because it's one thing to be in the middle of a threat. Like, let's say you have a menacing person confronting you at the gas station. You're going to have a physical reaction, but anxiety is the foretelling of a threat a lot of times. Like,
yes, yeah. Exactly. Like, and oftentimes anxiety, it's living in the future of what we might perceive as a threat. So almost even, not almost, but as simple as driving to work and you're running a little bit late and you're nervous that your boss is going to yell at you.
Haven't even gotten to work yet. You don't even really know. Your boss might not even be there yet, right? When I started body work, I was an artist, and I was in my studio painting all the time, and I was just anxious about every painting. I wanted it to be a good painting. I was anxious about every stroke that it was. And I realized that I couldn't go on like that. So I needed to do something else just to kind of deal with this. I was just calling it stress.
Right.
But it was the threat that I wasn't good enough a lot of times is what I was projecting into my head. So I got into martial arts and breath work, but it really was just a matter of just getting into my body. I think the thing that body workers know about anxiety that other people who maybe not exercising or haven't really got into their bodies hasn't realized yet is that the energy of anxiety is cerebral at first. It's this spinning thought, and then it just keeps churning and churning and churning. Yeah. When you do something in your body, like take a yoga class or exercise or something like that, that energy has to be distributed into other resources in the body. So it just isn't getting more acute up here in those spinning thoughts. And then you tack on something like the breath work that you have to do while you're exercising. Absolutely. And now you've hit anxiety from two fronts. You've dissipated the acuteness in the mind, and then you've added literally the biological tool that brings your nervous system down, and that's deeper breathing.
Right. And I thought it was really interesting when I got into physical workout to start to manage my own anxiety. Just how effective breathing is to cueing your entire mental state so that your nervous system relaxes. It says, I am okay right now.
I'll be okay. Yeah, even if you have to take 100 breaths and say it over and over and over, you've got a choice. You can let the anxiety win, or you can fight it a little bit. And now, granted, if you just, there's different levels of anxiety. I mean, you could be in a fetal position, you know, that type of level, and that's trauma-induced stuff. And, you know, that requires, you know, obviously deep levels of help, including probably pharmaceutical, you know, means. But if we're just talking about I've got to make my day work for me instead of against me, if we stay in our heads, we're done.
Right.
Like the mind makes a wonderful servant but a terrible master. But the thing is, how many clients have you worked with? You've been teaching yoga for 10 years. How many clients have you worked with that literally walk in the door and only understand themselves from here up? Like, you start showing them things to do with their feet.
Right.
And they're like, I had no idea my feet did this. And it's like, you've been walking around that body for 30, 40 years, but none of us do because we're not taught that. We, in this culture, we embrace the mind. But if you haven't figured out how to let this work for you instead of against you, then that's a rough road. That's a long life.
Right.
It's a very long life.
I'll see a lot of students that will come in and are so in their mind, just like you're saying, that it's when I say left or right, they're not even able to put their left foot or their right foot forward as directed, because their mind and the storytelling, the fear of what might be about to happen is going on in their mind, instead of using their ears or being in their body.
We'd like to think that we're very evolved creatures, but we are very, very, very primal. And anxiety is a part of that primal system, that fight, flight, or freeze. And we all know as body workers, even if we just go back in time when we started, you know, doing exercise and taking yoga and stuff like that, we're shitty breathers. And here's the thing. And this, I tell people this all the time, and it just rocks their world. It's like, we should have been told this in kindergarten. But when you have anxiety, you are having a primal internal fight, flight, or freeze moment. And your breath starts to constrict and shorten as you are preparing for this future battle with your boss or whatever that hasn't even come to fruition. You don't even know if it's going to. But by bracing, you are elevating the symptoms more and more and more.
Like pounding heart rate.
Yeah, absolutely. You get the
the
tunnel vision, you know, the butterflies, the tingling in your feet, whatever your symptoms are, right? But it's getting away from you. So if you can't stop your mind, which most people can't, this was the big thing for me. It's like, I realized that I cannot control my thoughts. That they're stimulus responses, right? I have a trigger, the thought comes, I didn't ask for it, it's coming anyways.
Yes.
So what can I do? Can't go in through the mind, so I learned, well, oh my God, you can go in through the body. You can go in through the biology of being me, as opposed to the etheric wind of my brain that can't be harnessed.
Yes, very well said.
And when that happened, life changed. Life changed. And not only did my life change by just me enjoying being in my own body and mind, but I could, like, the confidence started ratcheting up. I was like, okay. Now, people make fun of me because if I am feeling anxious, I'll start rolling my shoulders, I'll move my neck in a weird way.
Loud exhales.
Or you take loud exhales, or I'll even take strong ones that, you know, do that, but instantaneously I feel better. Now, that's taken me years to generate that kind of practice and know when to recognize it. Taking a breath is not hard. Rolling your body around is not hard. It's stopping the reaction of what my nervous system normally wants to do. It's just pausing and say, wait, I'm in a anxiety loop right now. that moment right there, that's the difference between a beginner and you've been doing this shit for a while. You know?
I do. It's you start using the feeling of being excited or anxious as a clue that it's time right now to take a breath, be in my body, move it around, and valuing your nervous system, your state of mind, the way that you feel over perhaps maybe somebody's judgment of you breathing loudly or taking care of yourself, actually.
One of the most unproductive things a human being can do is to deny their reality right then and there. It's
That's powerful.
If you want to sit there and say, I'm okay, it's just, I'm not anxious, bullshit, you are anxious. And for you to deny that means that you're not going to take the necessary steps to at least make your situation better. But another thing is that fear of embarrassment. Once again, that's another primal issue as well. Look at a woman who might be at the grocery store and some guy's creeping up on her, right?
Right.
Instead, she's going to have a moment that instantaneously her primal mechanism is going to be like, this dude's creepy.
Yep.
I want him to get away from me. I need to send some type of signal, tell him like, dude, stop. Say something like that. But they pause and then they start second guessing themselves and they don't want to say anything out loud because it might be embarrassing. They could be wrong, all that kind of stuff. But just to stop and not be embarrassed, that ends up that changes the course of the whole situation. Same thing with taking a breath.
Yeah.
People don't want to take a breath, and you have new clients that do this all the time. To make an audible exhale in front of everybody to your nervous system, that's saying that we're struggling and I'm letting everybody know. We are not designed to show weakness. So we hold it tighter until we are in a fetal position in a corner or we've just checked out for the day.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to get over, that fear of embarrassment. But if we don't accept our reality and say, okay, there's simple things I can do to make it a little bit better, and moving the needle in that direction as opposed to moving the needle in the wrong direction, that's all personal development is. That's why we have jobs as coaches, is to help people just recognize which direction to move the needle.
So then exercise, basically breathing, moving, and paying attention to where your body is at in the present moment, right here, right now. Sounds like it gives you a lot of tools then, like to be able to battle, move through these life situations that show up and can be uncomfortable.
Yeah, you and I both know it does. Right. We didn't realize that when we started.
No.
You remember, were you ever a smoker?
Oh, I was a smoker at 18, 19,
15.
20.
I was a smoker at age 15. And I had childhood trauma. And one of the reasons, I heard this, and I really believe this is true, but one of the reasons that people love to smoke, especially people who had early childhood trauma and difficulties, is because they were being forced to take a deep breath. Even though they're inhaling rat poison.
Right.
The diaphragm is activating, which it doesn't do when they're just sitting there from a shallow breathing point. So what's happening in exercise too? Heart rate. You are taking deep breaths for the first time all through the day instead of this shallow, gripped breath. It's all biological in the end.
Well, and Eric, what's so interesting about you saying that is when I picked up exercising daily, and in fact did my first certification to teach yoga, I was still smoking cigarettes.
Sure. Oh, I was too.
That I was able to quit cold turkey after showing up and practicing actually just breathing on my mat and breathing fresh air.
This is just as good.
Yeah, and it got to the point where I was like, oh, well, unless I quit smoking cigarettes, I'm never going to be able to take that big, full, deep breath, and that's brought so much calmness to my nervous system.
I agree.
As it is, that I was curious to go even deeper along that journey of what else can breathing do. And it was definitely just through the body.
Last thing you do before, your last moment on earth is going to be taking a breath. It's
Yeah.
the first moment on earth as
First
well.
and last.
And that's a powerful thing that we all need to keep in mind. And there's a lot of truth in it. But nobody can make any money off of it, so it's not going to be prescribed, and you're not going to see
Breathing is free, you're right.
Breathing is free.
And it's the best. I mean, one of the things that I had aha moments about with yoga is prana in Sanskrit translates to life force. Your breath is your
Stop doing it for a
life
while.
force.
Yeah.
So we breathe in new life force and we exhale anything that's toxic.
I like the word vitality. That's a word that I think needs to come back. And when I look around, you can tell somebody's health by the color of their skin, the pep in their step, the tone in their voice, their inflection. And I think people just have a vitality deficiency. And if you're not moving,
Yes.
you're born to move. If you're not moving, vitality's suppressed. If you're taking these shallow ass breaths, whether it's anxiety induced or just you didn't know any better, vitality's suppressed. If you're not challenging yourself and having to adapt to challenges, you're not growing, your muscles aren't being stimulated, your vitality's suppressed. If we treated vitality with the right amount of respect, it would be the new currency.
Yes.
Live better, die slower. It all comes down to how much vitality is in the tank. And your breath, like you said, first thing you do when you're born, last thing you do when you die. It is the prana, the life force, comes via how much am I breathing.
I know before I started practicing breathing and being in my body, when I started to do that, I would realize I'd go what it seemed like minutes without actually taking a breath that I was aware of.
Yeah, or a very, very small one. Yeah. I mean, we do it all the time.
Yeah.
We do it all the time. Watch when somebody's crying, right? Or when somebody is really, really out of breath, they raise their shoulders just to little breath. And watch people do it all day long. They breathe with their shoulders, so they're using these muscles in the top, the very top portion of their lungs and their rib cage, when their respiratory muscles, as you know, are all the way down into the abdomen, even the floor of their torso. Their respiratory muscles go all the way down there. And one of the hardest things that I know I know you've seen people cry before when you get them to finally realize what a deep breath feels like. It's a spiritual moment for these people, because you've just given them life back. You've given them back that vitality element that they're like, this is what I should have been doing all along. And we just don't know.
Choosing to live better.
Choosing to live better, but they
with every
didn't
breath.
know.
Yeah.
Same thing with anxiety. If you don't realize that you're responsible for moving the needle and you just take it as it comes, then that can be a very overwhelming type of life. That can be a life devoid of hope. We have this. We live in a celebrity culture as well, so we're very. We try to be perfect, right? Quit trying to be perfect. Just try to show up and deal with what's in front of you. Deal with your reality, and if your reality is anxiety, there's tools out there. And you and I both know. Now, don't get me wrong. If you put me in a stressful enough situation, it's overwhelming, and you shut down. Your body's designed to fight, flight, or freeze if the stress is high enough. But what's hard for people with anxiety is that I know this is an irrational belief,
Right.
and I don't like it. And am I broken? What's wrong with me?
Yep.
Am I weak? And you just go into that that loop over and over in your head, and doesn't make it any better. But as soon as you do something in your body, it goes from your head.
Yes. And it's as
somewhere
simple
else.
as the breath, because that's in our body.
It's a physical thing.
So when we start to notice that mental chatter, loud, it can be the biggest cue to choose. Because I think a lot of times the reason we'll shut down is because we want to feel like we're in control of something, even if it is the breath. So we'll choose, to just be safe in a situation that isn't actually dangerous, rather than to choose, I choose to be alive in this uncomfortable situation right now and get through it.
Yeah, I can do this. Yeah, and that's people don't understand the benefits of stress. But it's just something that doesn't feel good. Exercise. Again. Exercise, self-induced stress.
Yes.
I hate exercising. Well, yeah, it's not comfortable. I get it, but it also makes people go into fight or flight. If somebody who's been very sedentary for a while starts to jump up and down, their heart rate is skyrocketing the same way it would skyrocket if there was somebody chasing them with a knife. They're into 170 beats per minute.
Yep.
That's the same exact many beats per minute Jason in a horror movie chasing somebody through the woods, right? That's what their nervous
Serious
system thinks.
situation.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to start there.
Right.
You start with something lighter. It's all about moving the needle. It's not about shoving the needle. It's about moving it in a way that your nervous system can adapt positively, and your breath will never lie to you. Your breath will get you there. What's the number one thing we work on during our workouts? Conscious breathing. If you can't breathe anymore, then you take a break.
Right. Take care of yourself.
You're not adapting. Yeah, good job.
Until you can breathe.
It's that easy.
Yes.
It's that hard too, but it's not.
That's true. It just is practice.